Hi Patrick, this is Mashnu, and I've been reviewing your game, and I must say you played a very good game. Except for the last move, of course, that was a big mistake, but the rest of the game was good, was really good. So I think you can be proud about this level of play. Your opponent was rated 1853. That's, well, quite an experienced player, and you managed to reach one position. Let's go move by move, because then we can get to the important moments. You play knight f3, and you explain in your commentary that you don't want to play d4 or e4 because there are so many defenses that you need to be prepared to meet. And yeah, that's true, of course. I remember when I started playing, I also played knight f3 because of the same reason. It feels very safe to know what system you can play, and after knight f3 you can always play g3, bishop g2, and then sometimes d3 and c4, or sometimes d4. It has two sides. On one hand, you're playing what you know that you can play, what you're experienced in. On the other hand, because of this, you don't meet other type of positions. So I would advise you, when you play important games like in tournament here, stay with what you know, like knight f3. But when you play friendly games, or you're playing on the internet, and there is really nothing about money prices or rating on anything like that, you can just experiment with d4 or e4 just to have more experience and to meet new type of positions. So that's very good for your development. Otherwise you become an expert on a very small part of chess. Yeah. Alright, but let's go on with the game. d5, g3, knight to c6, bishop g2. That's the perfect place for this bishop. Knight f6. Now d4, controlling the center. And here your opponent plays bishop to f5, bringing the bishop out of the pawn chain before he plays e6. And he, after castle kingside, immediately he goes to attacking your c2 pawn. And I like very much what you did here. You didn't play knight to a3. That would be actually perhaps the move that many people play immediately to defend c2. But it's not necessary indeed. You can play c3, welcoming this knight on c2, and you saw very well that you had this move knight to h4 later, attacking his bishop on f5. So after knight to c2, knight to h5, you are now questioning black. Do you want to go on and take on a1, or do you want to try to defend this bishop first with g6 or with e6? And he chooses to take immediately on a1. Now you take the bishop. He plays e6, attacking your knight. You go back to h4, and you write in your commentary here that you considered knight to e3, but you didn't like it due to the problem of the dark square bishop. I agree with you. I don't like it as well. A knight to e3 here, blocking your bishop, blocking the e-pawn, and this knight is here is not doing much. I mean, it's controlling c2, but that's a square that's already being controlled by the queen. So I agree with you that the knight on h4 is actually better. From here it can go back to f3 to control the central squares, e5, and it doesn't block your bishop. Your bishop can go later perhaps to f4 or g5. So good move. c5 now. Bishop to g5. You're preparing to move away your knight from b1 so you can recapture on a1. Simple, good chess. Now here he plays b5, and you continue with knight to d2. h6 takes, queen takes. Important moment again. You don't take immediately on a1. You could have, but you prefer first to defend your d4 pawn because the knight is not going away, and that's absolutely correct. Bishop d6, and now again you could take, but the knight is not running away, so you play e4, threatening e5 of course, and he decides to play queen to g6. Now after queen to g6 I thought perhaps there is something with knight to h4 again, and trying to place this queen in a very bad position, but it doesn't really work, I think. I'm not sure. Knight to h4, I mean, if this queen goes to h7 it looks very ugly there, and to have it more active it could go to g5, and then the question is, can we play f4 or is it too dangerous? Perhaps it's just too much trying to play f4 here. The queen must go back to e7 probably, and then we can capture a pawn here and threaten rook e1. So perhaps instead of queen to e7, queen to d8 is better. So after opening this e-file here, we have a check but without winning the queen. But this looks like an interesting position for white. You know, the knight can go back to f3 and then again to e5, and you have the open e-file. So this was also a possibility, but instead of that you decided to take immediately on e5. I think this is also absolutely correct. E takes, and then rook to e1 check. More or less the same, with the difference that this pawn on d5 is not directly attacked by the bishop because the knight is still in between. But still this position is great for white. King goes to f8. Queen takes, knight on a1, and now he plays a rook to c8. So you have one material, you have two knights for a rook, and you have control over the e-file, and you have his king in a very unpleasant position on f8, blocking his rook on h8. This is a very, very unhappy rook on h8, so this position is wonderful for white. You continued here with knight to e5, attacking the queen, and he decides to trade it. You take back with the rook, controlling the e-file. C takes d4, c takes d4. Now we have to take a look at the square c2, because there could be a rook entering there, but at the moment it's not that dangerous. He plays queen to d3, attacking your knight. You play queen to e1, defending the knight and controlling the e-file even more. If it takes the pawn, you can take the pawn on d5, so that's not a problem. Was there a way, let me go back, was there a way to play something like knight to b3 to defend your own pawn? Is that good or not? I mean, we still can take here on d5 later. Can it become dangerous if he enters on c2? Let's see. If he goes here, you can still play. Wait a minute. If queen to e1, then the b2 pawn hangs. So this queen is actually not very well placed at the moment. He wants to play perhaps a5, a4, and after the knight goes away, queen to d2 to attack f2. But do we need to be really worried? Can we sacrifice this pawn on b2? How about queen to e1, activating the queen? If it takes on b2, what happens? Oh, there is a checkmate, of course, checkmating 1. So that means that this is very good for white. So the queen, the rook of black may not leave the back rank. It's too dangerous. So rook c2 is not good. So after knight to b3, what else can black do? He could try to make some heir here for the king, so there is no checkmate threat. But here we take, I think, this pawn. So we have won another pawn, a little more material. We are targeting f7. We are ready to play queen to e1 and rook to e7. So this looks good for white. Let's go back. I don't know if you considered knight to b3 or not. I mean, I also like your move very much. I mean, this is also a very good move, since you're actually using the principle of improving the position of your worst piece, and your queen on a1 was the worst piece at that moment. So you're improving it and defending your knight on d2. Let's see how this continued. f6. Well, it attacks your rook, but it weakens also these light squares, g6 and f7. Rook takes pawn, okay. Another option would be to play rook to e7 immediately. Rook e7 with the idea of queen to e6, threatening mate on f7, going for a kingside attack immediately. And I think this rook on the 7th is very dangerous. Also because it prevents black from going with his king to f7 and activating his other rook. So with rook to e7 you control his position completely. But anyway, rook takes d5 is fine as well. I mean, you also can threaten rook to d7 after this, followed by queen to e7 check and checkmate. So he goes rook e8. Your queen goes to c1. Now king s7. He wants to connect his rooks. Rook check on d7 looks good. He goes to g6. Now g7 is the place that we must concentrate on. g7 is the target, and you played bishop to e4 check here, and it was not good. This is giving back material, but it was not necessary. You could use your pieces to attack, and what happens is that after he takes here, he's ready to activate his other rook, and then we have both sides with active pieces. So I'm not very happy with this. And you mention here also that after the game you found that bishop to f1 was a better move. I was looking at bishop to d5 or queen to c7. The idea with queen to c7 would be to attack on g7 immediately, sacrifice this knight, but this needs calculation, and I think it's good for white. If he takes, you take on g7 with check, and I mean, you only need to look at this position to at least think that most probably black will be checkmated. If the king goes to, well, if the king goes here, that's the easiest one, then queen to f7 is checkmate, right? And if the king goes to f5, then you have, let's see, g4 check, king must go to e6, and now there is a checkmate with queen to d7. So the instructive thing about this position is about dynamic play. You need to, as you mentioned yourself, you were looking for forcing moves, but actually here you need to first to make a list of candidate moves that are forcing, that are threatening, that are powerful moves. And I think there are 3 here: queen to c7, bishop check, and bishop d5 with the idea of bishop f7. Yeah, this needs calculation actually. It's a matter of calculating what happens, and after the calculating, evaluating the result. And that was, I think, the mistake here, that perhaps you only looked at one line, and I'm not sure what happened in your thought process. But actually, especially in these positions where the king of the opponent is so vulnerable, we need to try to find different ways of attacking and then calculating. Bishop d5, by the way, it's actually also quite dangerous for black, I mean, you still after this you can play queen to c7 with the same ideas, and you're also threatening to give a check here, winning material on e8. So this is also very good for white. Let's say if he wants to prevent bishop f7, he wants to prevent to lose this rook, so he goes rook to e2. Then again we can go queen to c7, and the threat of rook takes g7 is so strong. He cannot stop it. I mean, playing something like this looks so ugly, you know. Even here bishop f7 is very strong, forcing the king to come closer. And in this position, wherever it goes, whether it goes to g5 or f5, there is queen f4 checkmate. So this was absolutely a winning position at this moment, and it's a pity this bishop e4. But let's continue. Rook takes, knight takes, queen takes, because still you have a nice position with queen c7 attacking g7. Black gives a check, you go to g2, and gives another check, you play f3. You don't want to repeat the position. Very good, because you don't want to have a draw here, you want to win. He gives another check and you go to h3. Now it looks like this is the end of the checks, and he could give one more check on e6, but that's not helping him. You play g4, so he defends rook to g8, and here you continue with queen to c6. And well, perhaps your idea was to trade queens with a check here, and then have an endgame with a very active rook against a passive rook, and you have a passed pawn as well, and you are a pawn up. So well, that would be, I think, in your favor. Rook e8 was played, so he prevents this queen check, but you take the pawn on a7. Queen f1 check, king to h4, rook to e2. And well, he's threatening to take on h2, so h3 is a very logical move to do. And here is where something strange started happening. He played queen to d1, and now you made the mistake of queen d7. I don't know whether you were on time trouble. Perhaps you didn't have much time, and that made you even more nervous. As you have found already, queen to d5 is winning, and queen to d7 is a big mistake. You know, I wish I had the recipe to stay calm in every situation, but I honestly don't have that recipe. It happens to me as well that that I get nervous. I mean, there are some ideas. I mean, what I do normally when I feel that I'm starting to get nervous, I stand up and I just go for a walk and have a look at the other boards, things like that, or I go to get a drink at the bar, not an alcoholic drink, but just a soda or anything, just to have some distraction. And of course, besides what you do during the game, you can also practice outside chess of well, finding ways how to calm down, how to diminish the tension in your body. Perhaps some breathing exercises and things like that, or mindfulness exercises, yoga, those things. I mean, they are useful because they help you to lower your tension, and tension has a direct effect on your ability to think clearly. When the tension rises, our brain doesn't work that well. It narrows our way of thinking. So we really need to relax. When we relax, we're able to see clearly and to evaluate clearly and make correct decisions. But well, we all know more than we can. and that's the experience I think of every chess player. We know a lot, but in practice, well, sometimes our nerves, our tension is our enemy. So well, here queen d7 and game over. The checkmate is following after rook to e4. So well, what can I say? Actually, I'm going to repeat how I started, Patrick. You played a very good game, a very, very good game. Only this last move was a big mistake, and this bishop e4 was also a mistake, but well, not that terrible big. I mean, it's we cannot play games without any mistake. But this last mistake was fatal. But overall, you're playing very well. You're playing good chess, and keep playing tournaments, so you get used to how this tension things work in tournaments. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you find soon another tournament to play, so you keep playing and keep practicing and keep learning. Alright, thanks for watching. It was a beautiful game, and I'll see you next time.